Good day everyone, my name is Gayos. I'm from BS Criminology 1E2. So I'm here to discuss my knowledge about C.L.J, in short of Criminology, Law and Justice. So first, I'm going to discuss Sir Robert Peel's Principles of Law. So Sir Robert Peel is said to be the father of modern democratic policy. In 1829, he created the Metropolitan Police in London, England, and along with it, proposed the principles under which they would become efficient in maintaining safety and security within the community under the law. So, the basic mission for which the police exists is to prevent crime and disorder. The ability of the police is to perform their duties is dependent upon public approval of police actions. Police must secure the willing cooperation of the public in voluntary observation of the law to be able to secure and maintain the respect of the public. The degree of cooperation of the public that can be secured diminishes proportionately to the necessity of the use of physical force. So, police seeks and preserves public favor not by catering to the public opinion, but by constantly demonstrating absolute impartial service to the law. So, police use physical force to the extent necessary to secure observance of the law, to restore order only when the exercise of persuasion, advice, and warning is found to be insufficient. So, police at all times should maintain a relationship with the public that gives reality to the historical tradition that the police are the public and the public are the police. So, the police being only members of the public who are paid to give full-time attention duties which are incumbent on every citizen in the interest of community welfare and existence. So, police should always direct their action strictly towards their function and never appear to usurp the powers of the judiciary. So, the test of police efficiency is the absence of crime and disorder, not the visible evidence of police action in dealing with it. So, the next one is the prosecutors. So, public prosecutors perform a crucial role in society. They are the gatekeepers of criminal justice, insofar as without their initiative, there cannot be the prosecution and repression of crimes. So, prosecution service are society's principal means of pursuing punishment of criminal behavior and its interference with the adjudicative power. Only cases that are brought to courts by public prosecutors can be processed and adjudicated by the judge. Other forms of prosecutors are like private prosecution. It exists only in a few countries and apply in limited circumstances. So, prosecutors are required to apply the law to criminal cases, protect the rights of the persons involved in criminal proceedings, respect human dignity and fundamental rights, and ensure public security. In many countries, prosecutors also play a key role in applying and defining criminal policy by using their discretion, including adapting to social changes. In some countries, prosecutors also have competence in civil proceedings to secure the protection of the rights, freedoms and interests of juveniles, elderly or disabled persons, or persons who due to their state of health are unable to take proceedings. So, in criminal cases, prosecutors are responsible for representing not only the interests of society at large, but also those of victims of crimes. They also have duties to other individuals, including persons suspected of a crime and witnesses. So, other than prosecutor, we have probation. It is a disposition under which a defendant, after conviction and sentence, is released subject to conditions imposed by the court and to the supervision of a probation officer. So probationer, what is probationer? It means a person placed on probation. So what is probation officer? So it means one who investigates for the court, a referral for probation, or supervises a probationer, or both. So who grant of probation? It is subject to the provisions of this decree. The court may, after it shall have convicted and sentenced a defendant, and upon application at any time of said defendant, suspended the execution of said sentence and placed the defendant on the probation for such period and upon such terms and conditions as it may deem best. So probation may be granted whether the sentence imposed a term of imprisonment or a fine only. An application for probation shall be filed with the trial court with notice to the appellate court if an appeal has been taken from the sentence of conviction. The filing of the application shall be deemed a waiver of the right to appeal or the automatic withdrawal of a pending appeal. We have now the parole. So, under the traditional parole system, parole is a privilege for prisoners who seems capable of reintegrating into society. It's not a right, although some criminal statutes carry a right to an eventual parole hearing. Typical laws don't absolutely guarantee parole itself. Authorities retain the discretion to deny parole to prisoners they deem dangerous. Often, a parole board that denies parole to a prisoner sets another parole hearing at some later point, sometimes after several years. So, state law can provide that some kinds of convictions make prisoners ineligible for parole or eligible for it only after a very long prison sentence. Indeed, life without parole, regularly referred to as LWOP, is a common alternative sentence to the death penalty. Many prisoners do, however, become eligible for parole. Commonly, after a parole board finds that a prisoner is eligible, the inmate appears at a parole hearing. Granted parole, the parolee is released and lives in free society, but under the continued supervision of the prison authority. Parole decision can involve multiple steps, for instance, reviewed by a panel from the parole board and then reviewed by the whole board. In a few states, the state governor gets to review it and has the chance to reverse at least some parole grants. The prison authority primarily supervises the parolee through mandatory visits with the parolee officer. State Parole Services. It's usually a branch of the Department of Corrections. It may provide transitional services tailored to the parolee's needs, such as shelter in a halfway house or intensive mental health counseling. So, why parole? Parole is designed as an opportunity for a prisoner to transition back into society. The restrictions on parolees are supposed to encourage good behavior after incarceration. In fact, even before prisoners get out of custody, the possibility of parole gives them an incentive to avoid trouble. So parole also reduces prison overcrowding, granting offenders who are considered unlikely to harm others the benefit of supervised life in society. Parole helps the government try to cut down on the high cost of maintaining large prison populations while keeping the population at large safe. So, what are the parole conditions? Once out on parole, a parolee enjoys the privilege of relative freedom in return for abiding by certain conditions. Some common parole conditions are that the parolee maintain employment and a residence, avoid criminal activity and contact with any victims, refrain from drug and sometimes alcohol use, attend drug or alcohol recovery meetings, and not leave a specified geographic area without permission from the parole officer. Under a typical parole system, the parolee is assigned a parole officer and must meet with that officer periodically. The parole officer may also make unannounced visit to the parolee's home to check that the parolee is truly abiding by the relevant conditions. Unannounced visit let the officer observe whether, for example, there is evidence of parole violations like drug use. So, parole violation. To violate parole is to fail to live up to its conditions. The violation could be a bad act, like committing a new crime, or a failure to act, like not getting the parole officer permission to leave the country or state before going out of town. Minor or technical parole violation can land parolees back in prison or in jail. At the same time, some of the more minor violations, such as prohibited alcohol use, may cause the authorities to require something of the parolee rather than immediately commence back to prison's proceedings. For instance, a parolee officer might refer the parolee to substance abuse counseling, including, for example, AA meetings, and require proof of attendance. If the parolee fails to comply with the requirement, or if the parole violation was serious enough, and the authorities may begin hearing proceedings. At a typical hearing, the decision maker, whether a judge, the parolee board, or part of the parole board, will consider the nature and circumstances of the violation. So, parole violation proceedings can involve multiple steps, such as hearing before a parole officer and then before the board itself. The decision maker determines whether to send the parolee back into custody, depending on the rules of the jurisdiction. So, the prisoner may spend weeks, months, years, or the remainder of the original sentence back behind bars. So, the prisoner may also be granted a new parole hearing set to occur after serving some specified time. Last topic, we have 5 pillars of the criminal justice system. The first is law enforcement. Law enforcement consists of the officers and men of the Philippine National Police, the National Bureau of Investigation, and other agencies. When they learn of the commission of crimes or discover them, their duty is to investigate a crime, which may take them from form of surveillance and observation of suspects. The next one is prosecution. So this investigation and prosecution of all cases involving violation of penal laws are lodged with the Department of Justice (DOJ) through its National Prosecution Service (NAPROS). So the next one is the judiciary. So if the preliminary investigation results in the finding that a crime has been committed and the suspect is probably guilty thereof, the public prosecutor will file the corresponding information in the proper court, thus activating the judicial process. And for the fourth one is the penal or correctional process. Punishment is the isolation of the convicts by imprisonment for the periods laid down by the court, or in extreme cases, their execution by the method prescribed by law, and correction and rehabilitation are functions undertaken by the institutions set up by law, the Bureau of Prisons, Parole, and Probation Administration. And for the last one is the community. After the convicts have passed through the correction component, either unconditionally, as all by full service of the term by imprisonment imposed on them, or by parole or pardon, they go back to the community and either live normal lives as law-abiding citizens in their barangays, or regrettably commit other crimes and thus go back through the same process and stage of the criminal justice system. The community at large, through the appropriate legislative agencies, public and private educational institutions, and parents and guardians, churches, religious organizations, and civil associations. That's all for today. Thank you for watching. I hope you learned something from my video. Thank you and continue to learn.